a lot of acceptance.
There's also a lot of like divesting from the idea that like your body is the most interesting or most important thing about you.
Yeah, snap, snap, snap.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, and that bleeds into so many different, right? It's not just about me. It's like how I perceive other folks. It's how I raise my kids.
Totally.
You know, when Mooney's like, don't I look so beautiful in this? I'm like, yes, and.
Right.
Yes, and you do, but you know what else is super cool about you? Like how funny you are. You know what
right.
I mean? Like holy fuck, when I think about the way that looks was like pushed on me as a kid and like how fucking important it was to the adults in my life.
Yeah, like the number of core memories that I have
that are around.
That are like adults commenting on my body
is astounding.
Ridiculous.
And it makes me kind of want to barf.
Yeah.
And it makes me super emotional for my inner kid.
Mm-hmm.
And for like my, you know, I'm just like, fuck no. What I, you know, and I think I told you the time that Mooney came home and was like, you know, the kids are talking about the gap in between my front teeth, you know, and like how she was feeling like blue about it, like didn't understand like why people were talking about that in that way. And what I wanted to tell her was like, you need to go back to school and tell these kids to fuck off.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, but I just like, god damn, man, like at 6 years old being like, you know, these kids are talking about my body in this way and I'm having none of it. I'm divesting.
Yeah.
That's my body story. Tell me about your body
story. My body story.
I'm gonna talk like this the rest of the podcast.
Oh, are you doing your Ira Glass voice? My body story. I have always been like I was never like a little kid, right? Like I was
What is small?
Right.
Oh, and I small for 400.
And I think it's so funny because I see like, and every time I've said this, I think on the podcast, but every time I see like Mooney in Mooney reminds me of me as a kid, right? Like I was bigger than everybody else and I was like there was no option for me to be smaller.
No.
Right? Like that was never going to happen.
He's like a big kid.
Right.
Tall,
and I was taller than everyone, I was bigger than everyone, and I remember like I think the first time someone called me fat, I was like 6 or 7.
Oh fuck somebody up.
Yeah.
And also to be clear, like fat is not negative, but
no. Like when we use fat in a weaponizing way, that's when I'll fuck somebody up. When we're like when Ava and I are like hanging out on the river and we're like fat mermaids, yeah, that's like
that's reclamation.
Yeah, that's a celebration. Anyway, yeah, diets were really rampant in my family. My parents were both like, oh god, they went through a South Beach diet phase, which is like also just like big California vibes.
My mom was too. Just like Atkins all day. Like I'm not eating bread ever.
They were really intense about it, and I remember like my mom, like, you know, again, our parents do the best they can with the information that they have. But my mom said a lot of really horrible things about her own body, and I was very quick to like internalize those. Yeah. And I remember, you know, I would go through my phases of also like doing the South Beach diet with them, which is like the first 2 weeks is literally no carbs, right? Like no bread, no fruit. It's like meat and vegetables, and maybe if you're lucky, you can have a potato.
Oh, I love
them. But like, it was just it wasn't that, like, my parents definitely came to dieting from this perspective of like health, right? They like were really bought into that idea that thinness equals health, and that like dieting is the path back to health.
That you get healthy.
Right. And like, you know, I was a kid in the 90s and, you know, early 2000s. So of course, like that was rampant, right? I vividly remember
thin is health.
Thin is health. But I also like, I think any like, you know, bigger person who was socialized as a girl in that time period remembers that fucking Vanity Fair cover with all of the teens, with Mary Kate and Ashley and Lindsay Lohan and Mandy Moore and Amanda Bynes, and they were all like so thin and perfect. And the low rise pants
Yeah.
and all of that. And I just remember like going through and looking at every single one of them and like comparing the size of my thighs, like specifically my thighs. I always had like,
tree trunk legs.
Yeah, like I have had thunder thighs since I busted out the womb with thunder thighs. Like I have never had a thigh gap. That's never been something that exists on my body. And that's very okay with me now. But as a kid, I was like,
I used to do that with people's arms. I used to compare arms.
Yeah, I compared thighs like nobody's business. And then I think what's really interesting is that my like acceptance of my body really started when I started swimming.
When you became a mermaid.
I was always a mermaid.
Oh, when you like.
But when I like joined the swim team, I was like, oh wow, these guys like they do a lot of work, right? Like they do like the reason that I am the best breaststroker on the team is because I have giant thighs, right? And it was something that was like really celebrated about my body. And the other piece of like being in the water for me was just like being weightless, right? Like feeling really free and feeling like my body was just as like fluid and free as everybody else is in the water.
Who was like smaller.
Who was smaller, yeah. Phoebe Wall actually just like made a really beautiful comic about this, about like being the fat girl who loves swimming, and I just like so oh my god, I was weeping when I read it.
You were the first person that I thought of too. I sent it to you. You were the first person I thought of. Naturally.
It's just like so beautiful. But that's like really, so my relationship with my body really shifted when I started being in the water all the time. Yeah. And like I remember being really proud of how powerful my body was when I would swim in the ocean and I could like stand up when a wave came, or I could like jump over a wave and things like that. And I just like thought that was really cool. I always knew though that I was supposed to hate my body.
Right.
And so I did. Right. And then I remember this one day in college being like, oh, I don't hate my thighs as much as I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's okay.
I think I started doing that with my belly. You know, like, because here's the other thing that I never loved is like when I started like relinquishing or knowing like, you know what, actually, I fucking love food.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually love cooking, and not from a place of how do I make this like less caloric.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I just loved cooking, you know, but like something that was always hard for me was like, okay, but wait, like, even, you know, fat bodies or bigger bodies in media, like, for the most part, I mean, like, their bellies are still flat.
Right.
And even if they're not flat, I mean, you're not seeing bee bellies. You're not seeing, I mean, they're like round, but they look like fucking, like a Michelangelo painting. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like this like voluptuous.
That's the tortellini belly.
Exactly. And it's like the most palatable, like if you're gonna be fucking fat, fine, but you're gonna like make it palatable. You know what I'm saying?
You're gonna do it in a like feminine, elegant way.
You have to. And like my belly has always been like fucking like loosey goosey. And like I don't like my belly button looks like a crease. And it always has like since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like it's not cute, it's not a tortellini belly button.
No.
It's literally a crease in my stomach. And I remember thinking like, my stomach is fucking ugly because like that's, and now when I'm like standing, again, this is like acceptance, when I'm like standing naked in front of the mirror, I'm just like,
there it is.
There's my belly.
I have one.
Cool.
Yeah. Neat. Like I exist in a body.
Yeah, it's not like I'm out here again because I'm not into like toxic positivity in terms of like, or like you're never gonna be able to be in this space unless you wake up every morning feeling like I'm so in love with every.
No, that's not like. That's not the goal, I don't think. Like, I don't think the goal is, Ava heard a weird noise and sorry, we got distracted. I don't think the goal is to like wake up every morning and be like, oh my God, my body is perfect. The goal is to wake up every morning and have like my whole humanity, like the wholeness of myself exist and like honor that and
not have it be wrapped up in
not
how do I feel about my body?
right. Like have it not have to be a caveat. Like, oh, I like myself in spite of my like dimply ass thighs. No, 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 no. Like that's not it.
No.
It's just like my body is not is the least interesting thing about me.
It's like a meat suit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Like this is
here it is.
There's a Flock of Dimes song, and one of the lines is, and we're all just wearing bodies like costumes till we die. And like that's it.
I mean, like, but for real.
But anyway, I feel like when I engage with food, like when I go out to dinner, especially because, you know, my sweet angel partner is a string bean, I feel like it is an act of like rebellion and resistance for me to publicly enjoy food.
Fuck yeah.
Like, I feel like there is something, which like, okay, the fact that this is radical is
fucking stupid. So let's name that.
I don't want to be like making a statement every time I like eat pizza
in front of my rather thin partner,
or like in a restaurant where people can see it.
Like, oh my God,
but like,
enjoying this?
but there's something that feels really radical about like in the summer, like walking down the street in like cut off shorts, eating an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
And I wish that wasn't the case.
Because it's fucking stupid.
Because it's stupid.
But here we are.
But like, I think that food as my relationship with food becomes one that really centers pleasure. Like, I feel like that is also a way that I individually just like resist this idea that thinness is the thing that we should all be aspiring to.
That it's like the end all be all.
Right. Yeah. I think there's something like this sounds arrogant, I don't know, but like maybe the pep talk that I give myself sometimes, like every time I step out to the world with and like enjoy food, or every time I cook like a really rich, delicious thing, like that is like saying it with my whole chest that like I think that these standards, I think that this like white supremacist like lens that we look at bodies under is like absolute garbage. And like I'm also saying that as a white person, so like grain of salt there, but like
but it is.
But like that is one of the ways that I feel like I'm like embodying resisting and like rebelling against the system as opposed to like externalizing it. Right. You know what I mean?
That's how
and it feels yeah. And it feels good, and it feels like a much more sincere, like authentic relationship with myself. I don't know. And it's like, it's fun.
It's so fun. I mean, like a period at the end of the statement, right? Like when you start to, and we talked about this, like not everybody approaches food like you and I.
Right.
And like that's also okay, right?
Right.
I mean, Anaya loves to like eat what we feed him, and also like Anaya's not geeking out over like what the fuck he's gonna do with nectarines tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But I just found so much joy in so many things that didn't even have anything to do with food, but like my creativity and like how I parent my family and like what, you know what I'm saying? Like I love that Scarlett gets to watch us cook and eat with like this, like with gusto, and not like, well, you know, but we're not going to eat very much of it because it's not good for us.
It's not going to be like a performance of like, oh my God, this is so much food. I could never eat this much.
Like, ooh, I'm being so naughty. Like,
right.
Never. Like, I would fall to pieces if somebody was like, oh, I'm being so bad, like in front of my kids. I feel very protective over them in that way. But I love that too. Like shorts, ass out. Like I'm not doing anything to cover up my arms, and like we are walking down to the ice cream shop a couple blocks away and just like eating ice cream. I'm not sitting there going like, do you have a calorie list? Which I have done 2 million fucking times in my life. I'm not like, I'm going to skip the cone and like get a cup instead. You know what I mean? There's a lot of joy in reclaiming like your your views on food,
Yeah,
your
and
views
I
on your
think
body.
yeah, I think there's a lot of like I don't know, people, there's a lot of